equipping you to think well about culture and create conversations that lead to wisdom. This is the THINQ podcast. Hi, I'm Gabe Lyons. Welcome back to another episode of the THINQ podcast. So today's episode, we are talking about what is happening in a new generation. And it's not just happening in the U.S., but it's starting to happen around the world. And it's called Grassroots Revival. And I know whenever we use a term like revival, you're kind of careful about that. You don't just want to put the label revival on everything that's happening, but we know what a revival is. It's the reviving of the Spirit of God in the heart of the church. And Jessi Green is someone who is leading a community and many communities as she travels the world to really experience the power of God. And we wanted you to just hear from her. We want you to hear her perspective, what she's seeing. Now, she's a revivalist, a speaker. She leads something called Saturate Global, which is a movement dedicated to seeing grassroots revival break out across America. And she has this deep passion for awakening people to the transformative power of the gospel. I will say, when we've experienced the move of God in our next gen summits, in these spaces where we're creating more and more space, not just to just learn truth and wisdom, but to have space to experience the healing that God can bring, as well as the boldness and courage that He's giving to a new generation. We're witnessing it. And we're not just seeing it in our events, we're seeing it throughout the country. We're seeing it through the Unite movement that's taking place on college campuses. We're seeing it around the world in the ways that some of the most intellectual people of our time are recognizing the promises of secularism are dead. We must go back to religion. We must go back to faith. We're living in quite a moment, and it's important for us as leaders, for us as thought leaders, to recognize that there's a lot on the move that we want to be a part of, and we want to have a perspective of hopefulness as well as joy to take the gospel forward wherever God's placed us. And I think Jessi's going to inspire you as you listen to what her experience has been and how we can all be a part of what's happening at the grassroots level. Let's listen now.
Hey, everybody. I am so excited because Jesus is actually alive. Anyone else? I love that we worship a God that didn't just die and give us a new form of morality, but actually is ascended and seated and enthroned and is the king of the universe. He created stars. He thought of the concept of gravity, and yet he knows us. He purposes us. And I think, why do we need revival? Like, all of us, there's this yearning in us, right? People are talking about revival, about awakening, but why should we even care? And I think the reality is we need revival so that the church can be reestablished into what it's supposed to be. So what's the church supposed to be? It's supposed to be a place that looks like the kingdom of heaven here on earth. And Christians are supposed to look like those that have faith and believe that they worship a risen Savior. Are you a Christian today? Okay, about half of you. This is why we need revival. Because here's the thing. We get saved. God literally takes us out of the hell that many of us created. For me, I had had multiple abortions, was addicted to drugs, had shame, suicidal thoughts. And in the middle of the night on 31st Street in Lexington, I cried out to God. And my very proper prayer was like, Jesus, if you're real, you have to take this pain away. And the real living Jesus came into my apartment, pulled hell out of me, and literally thrust me into a life of joy, of godliness, of consecration, and he set my heart on fire. So what is a grassroots revival? Honestly, I'm just convinced that it's believers believing. We just are fully convinced and persuaded by the things that we wear on our t-shirts. We believe, we say all the right things, we go into church, we sing the songs, but do we believe worthy is the Lamb who's enthroned, right? King of kings, Lord of lords. All of the elders are throwing down their crowns, and yet we're afraid that we might be rejected, and yet he is the high and lifted one. So where do you start? Where do you begin? For some of you, have a dinner party and invite friends over and persuade them. That's what faith is. It's persuading them that the Jesus that you worship is not this boring morality, this Christian mundane thing that doesn't work, but you literally have the keys and authority to rip hell and depression out of their life and thrust them in to a life that actually works. Go to the streets. Go to the beaches. Do not be deceived that people do not care. They are hungry and they are desperate and they're waiting for a church that believes what they say they believe. Thank you, guys.
I love how Jessi speaks to this and just reminds us revival's not just about being in a church building, but this is spreading everywhere. And that's what I'm experiencing. People are hungry for this. People are longing for this. I just returned from a trip to London where I was a part of an event called ARC. It stands for Alliance of Responsible Citizenship. And at this event that Jordan Peterson helped co-create with Philippa Stroud, you hear the sentiments of a return to the Christian basis and foundation for how human beings flourish. This wasn't a Christian event. This was an event designed to talk about how do we recover the Imago Dei? How do we recover a vision for human flourishing that seems to be getting lost in the digital age, or in an age where secularist ideas, Enlightenment ideas are falling short of leading to a flourishing life? And so throughout this event, you hear a return to Judeo-Christian ideas. These are ideas that aren't talked about in the public square really for the last several decades. And now there's a return. There's something new afoot. And so I just want to encourage you, when you hear Jessi's talk and you share this with other friends, recognize that we're all part of a moment right now where God is on the move and he's looking for thought leaders like yourself to be willing to engage these topics perhaps more boldly than you ever have before, because people are hungrier than they've ever been in your lifetime. So let's continue to do this together as we learn through THINQ Media, as we create conversations using the content that talks like this through our smart TV apps, our phone apps. Go get all of that. Get your kids to have these apps. We want to be flooding you with thoughtful wisdom about the way in which God's working in the world, and we love getting to do this together. Encourage others to listen to this podcast, to subscribe, to follow us, and we'll look forward to keeping these conversations going week in and week out. I'm Gabe Lyons, president of THINQ, and I want to invite you to join us for our first ever THINQ Summit 2025, coming to Nashville October 2nd to 4th. For 20 years, we've been creating spaces for leaders to come together, but we've never created a space like this. The amount of interaction, the amount of experiences, the keynote talks, the workshops, the skills you're going to learn, the new friends you're going to walk out of the room with is just going to be second to none. And so as you're making your plans for 2025, put on your calendar now, Thursday, October 2nd through Saturday, October 4th. Go to our website at thinkmedia.com/summit and learn all about the ways you're going to learn and interact with so many different leaders from around this nation. Culture changes when leaders from different channels of culture come together in common purpose. We've designed this summit as a space that's not just about content, but it's about relationships. It's about meeting other leaders that will inspire you, encourage you, and ultimately create culture together. Join us in October 2nd to 4th for THINQ Summit 2025. Learn more at thinkmedia.com/summit.